Okay, let's check in on how markets in Asia are faring this morning as well. Avril is in our Singapore studio. For the most part, Avril, we're talking about a positive reaction and market participants reacting quite well to the news that there may be some exemptions applied to consumer electronics and goods.
Yeah, exemptions, but Trump and his team also seem to be suggesting that some of this is going to be temporary. So even though you're seeing Asia stocks tracking the bounce in US futures, it's not quite enough to erase the declines of last week. And on top of that, we're actually seeing tech chip names actually pairing gains from earlier on in the session. Now, we also had trade data out of China today, and it showed the strong export surge, but some have already attributed this to front loading. And you also have the likes of Goldman that for the second time this month cut its China stock target. So it's more negative than positive in terms of news flow, but we are after all seeing a rebound in Asia stocks. Taking a look at the yen as well, it is pairing some of the gains from earlier. BOJ's Ueda speaking today and suggesting that, we're not going to see a rate hike at the next policy meeting. So a bit of a knee-jerk response, but given how the dollar has been slumping, most still think that the yen's path is one of strength.
Yeah, and not just the yen, we're keeping an eye on the yuan fixing as well, with the fixing coming in above 721. We'll talk about that later, Avril, but thank you for the overview, Avril Hong in Singapore. Now, President Trump has pledged that U.S. tariffs will be imposed on phones, computers, and popular consumer electronics, despite a temporary exemption announced on Friday. So difficult to keep up with. For more, let's bring in Bloomberg News senior editor Brian Fowler. Brian, maybe just walk us through what we learned from the Trump administration over the course of the weekend, because that exemption announcement came through late Friday evening. And then yesterday, we found out that it was only going to be temporary in nature. What do we know about the scope of exactly what's going to be applied and how long it's going to last for?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say that massive uncertainty seems to be the new normal for this market. So when we got that news on Friday, we had a big bullish response. It's a huge news for Apple and NVIDIA to have a 90-day pause on these tariffs that affect China. And I think it shows recognition on the part of the White House that these companies cannot simply remake their supply chains overnight. They need some time to prepare, and I'm not even sure that 90 days is going to be enough for them. But for the time being, it was a very bullish factor for them, and it looked like a good sign that Trump was recognizing reality. But then he came, as you said, he came back on Sunday and he said, no, this is a temporary thing. No one gets off the hook. Those tariffs will take effect after the 90-day reprieve. So it's, for now, the bullish sentiment is still carrying over somewhat. But of course, uncertainty is the biggest cloud hanging over the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone is talking about that, the uncertainty, and just the fact that really it is very unclear at this point what this Trump administration is actually going to end up imposing in terms of tariffs. But they're also talking about the potential for deals. And I thought it was interesting last week that Trump and many of the officials, senior White House officials, have said that Japan would be the top of the list in terms of countries that they're looking to make these trade tariff deals with. You're in Japan right now. We know that a delegation is planning on meeting with White House officials this week. Are we expecting some form of a deal? And would that come as a bit of a relief to some of these Japanese markets that you follow?
Yeah, so we're watching these talks very closely. Minister Akazawa is going to lead the negotiations from the Japan side, and he certainly wants to get some kind of reprieve, an exemption, or maybe a softening of both the reciprocal tariffs as well as the taxes on autos and auto parts. One thing we're also thinking about, though, is what is Japan taking to these meetings? And they've been very clear today or over the weekend that they are not going to use the massive holdings of treasuries as leverage. Japan has more than $1 trillion worth of U.S. treasuries. And if they wanted to create a problem, they could start selling these. And that would really worsen the fiscal situation for the U.S. But they've come out clearly and said that is not what they're going to do. And that's consistent with the other message we've had from them, which is retaliation is not something Japan wants to do. The one thing Japan could do is talk about security in Asia, which is a big factor for the U.S. as well as it eyes China's growing influence and role in the region. So that's one thing we would expect Japan to play up, as well as the massive investment from Japanese companies into the U.S. that's planned.
So more like a comprehensive deal, right? Not just economic, but perhaps including security as well. So interesting. Bloomberg's Brian Fowler, great to have you on the show.